Good evening, and welcome to What's Your Story? I am your host, James Ransom Reed Jr., and have I got a show for you this evening. My guests are from the Katharine Hepburn Museum down in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. They are going to introduce themselves to you right now.
Hi, I'm Robin Andrioli. I'm the Director of Development and Community Relations.
And I'm Elise Maragliano. I'm the Museum Coordinator.
Well, welcome, guys. And let me thank you for braving the traffic to get up here. I know what that's like because I've gone down there, so I get that. Why don't we start by telling our audience a bit about your background. We'll start with you, Robin. Like, where were you born? Where did you go to school? What degrees do you have? Do you have any hobbies? Go, Robin.
Oh, sure. So I am a Connecticut native, born in West Haven, which is in New Haven County. I didn't go very far. I went to the University of New Haven, which is also located in West Haven.
All right.
I have a bachelor's degree in communications and public relations and an MBA from the university. I absolutely love the arts, so my work is certainly my passion and one of my hobbies, going to concerts all of the time, training with my dogs, just hanging out with friends and family.
And what are your dogs' names?
They are Burton and Roscoe.
Let's give them a shout out. Let's give them
Shout out to babies at home.
There we go. There we go. Now, just tell us a little bit. We're going to get into it much more in the next hour, but how did you get involved with the Hepburn Museum? What got you going in?
Sure. So the Katharine Hepburn Museum is a part of the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, and I am Director of Development for the overall center.
What does a Director of Development do?
I am in charge of the fundraising programs for the Kate. And people don't necessarily say to themselves, I'm going to become a fundraiser, but you kind of fall into that line of work. I've always been involved in the arts, always worked for arts organizations, have produced events and been an administrator for many years. The Kate is a perfect combination of all of those things because it is live theater, music, film, cultural programs, all under one roof. And now we have this amazing Katharine Hepburn Museum, which we're so proud of. So my job is actually quite easy because people fall in love with the place when they're there, and they're very generous to the Kate, and we've been very fortunate.
You know, the last time I was there, I met the news broadcaster, Cynthia McFadden, and I saw she's on the board down there, or no.
Our
she's
advisory board.
Right, yes. Yeah. I was surprised. I looked at her and, you know someone, but it doesn't come to you right away where, and she said, hi, I'm Cynthia. And I thought, yeah, I know you. It was the glasses, right, that she had.
Yes.
And then I got McFadden and we chatted for a couple of moments. That was when we were there for the Judy Collins.
Judy Collins, that's right.
Oh, yes,
so
wonderful.
She's the executrix of the Hepburn
Yes,
Estate.
yes.
And she's been a part of the Kate since our founding in 2009. That's when we opened. She's wonderful to work with, and again, very generous with sharing information about the Hepburn collection that she has, and often lending us items from her own collection for our museum.
She has a collection of her own.
She does.
Wow.
Primarily artwork, things that Kate painted.
I also saw that Ann Nyberg was on the board down there too. Yeah. And, we watch her on Channel 8 a lot. That's right. And Ann's been terrific for a number of years. So, okay, Elise, it's your turn to start talking about Elise. Toot your own horn. Where were you born, Elise?
I was born in an army hospital in Landstuhl, West Germany. So my father was a career army. I was an army brat.
Yes, indeed.
Every 2 years as a kid growing up. I lived all over the United States. I lived in Germany and for 4 years later in my life, from 8 to 12 years old. So I had a very peripatetic childhood. I moved around a lot, and it's what got me interested in different cultures and history, and I am an anthropologist, so the degrees that I have are in anthropology. So I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, all in anthropology.
I'm sorry for not calling you doctor.
A variety of schools. And that's kind of what brought me to the Kate, because I have an extensive museum background, so I've worked in many museums.
Yes.
And when they created the museum and then really needed somebody to, after it was created, kind of take over and put things, keep it going. That's how I came on at the Kate.
What's the most interesting site you've been to as an anthropologist?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I can imagine, yeah.
I've been,
no
very
softball
interesting.
questions here.
So I have two favorites. One, I spent a summer in Iceland working on a dig there. That was really wonderful. Just really like a different planet. The landscape in Iceland is beautiful. And then probably my favorite, though, is in Oaxaca, Mexico, which is where I did my dissertation work.
It may interest you to know that my son was born in Germany. In Würzburg, Germany, down in the Krankenhaus down there. And I was stationed there for 2 years when I was in the military. I absolutely loved Europe and walking on pavements that Alexander the Great had trod and going into buildings that were 3 times as old as my country. I've always been a very history-loving, look at that kind of guy. Yeah, I'm the guy that nobody wants to go to the museum with because I actually read the stuff that's there. oh God, he's reading again, you know. So yeah, so it's terrific. Have you been back to Germany recently?
I have not been back recently. When I was in college, I spent a year in Hungary and took a trip to Berlin, which was really really meaningful because when I lived in Germany, it was still divided. So I had never been to Berlin. So that was really amazing to get to visit Berlin. But I haven't been back. I lived in Heidelberg as a kid.
Oh, yes.
And I haven't been back there. It's like on the bucket list for sure.
The Jäger Schnitzel, Wiener Schnitzel.
The Jäger Schnitzel
absolutely.
Is my
It's
favorite.
terrific. See how it's a small world.
Yeah.
I did not know that about you. I met you at least a couple of times. So, wow. So that's terrific. Well, let's see what we can get into here. My next question says, how and why and when was the Hepburn Museum created? How, why, and when?
So its origin is actually back to when the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center opened in 2009, but it was much smaller at that time. And we had several little vignettes where there were photos, family photos, or photos of Fenwick, which is the borough in Old Saybrook where Katharine Hepburn's home was. And, you know, we had some memorabilia that the family shared or other collectors had shared with us. In fact, we had an Emmy Award that's still on exhibit, a People's Choice Award for On Golden Pond, a few other items. But it wasn't until really 2020, the top of 2020, and this was just before the pandemic, we received a call from her grandniece, Skylar Grant, who was clearing out the last Grant family home in Fenwick. And her Katharine Hepburn's sister was Marion Grant, so she was kind of the matriarch of the Grant family. But they were selling that house, and they came upon boxes of letters, and they said, you can have all of this paperwork. We're not sure what's in it. Feel free, with a couple of other items. There was like jackets and a hat and things. We took it all back to the Kate and opened it up and realized that many of the letters were Katharine Hepburn's letters that she had written to her mother, her sisters, her father, really from about 1930 to about 1935. There were a few earlier and a few later as well. So we started reading them and transcribing them and realized what a story we could tell through her own words. So a couple months later, here we are in the pandemic. We are shut down completely as a performing arts center.
Yes.
That gave us an opportunity to actually knock down walls. So we brought what was the museum in our lower level completely to the studs and concrete floor and rebuilt it and made it twice as large. So we now have 1,100 square feet. We have 5 unique exhibit cases and several items that are on the walls, a portrait of Katharine Hepburn, which is beautiful, that we've had for some time. And really curated her life story through this exhibit, and start with her origin, being born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, all the way through to the end of her career and her last piece of work.
Were you a fan of hers prior to becoming involved with her cultural center?
That's a great question. I obviously had known about her, learned a lot about her, and working at the Kate over the first few years that I was there. But I did take on the task of transcribing those letters, read her autobiography several times. and then became such a fan and such a respected admirer of the woman before I ventured into watching all of her films. I had seen many of them, but really watching them with a different perspective.
Yes.
But as a woman who took on the movie studios and that industry to pave her own way, so much respect for her.
But in the 30s, or when with that?
Yeah, the 30s all the way through really the end of her career.
I guess she was challenged early on because of her views. Many people don't really know that. You just see her on screen and you see the affectations that she does, and you really forget that there are human beings behind the camera and behind the facade, which is why I love to bring people in like you to put a human face on the people that we have never met except through a TV screen or a movie screen. Yeah. So.
And what we found through the letters too is that it was never a sure thing for her. She was just like any other struggling actress, trying to find her way and trying to really get a foothold in the industry. So she had her ups and downs. One of the stories I love to tell is the fact that she wavered about starring in Little Women, which turned out to be such a box office success and a critically acclaimed success for her. She plays Jo in Little Women, but she wasn't sure she wanted to do the movie. She was afraid she would give up opportunities to come back to the East Coast and do New York plays. But in the end, she does make the movie, and good for us because it's a wonderful film.
Classic, yeah. It's a classic, yeah. And you, have you fallen in love with Katharine Hepburn?
I have.
All right, talk about that love affair.
I had seen Katharine Hepburn films. I distinctly remember as a child being homesick from school one day and my mom giving me, a VHS and saying, "You should watch this movie." And it was The African Queen. And it was so wonderful. And I remember in college flipping through stations and catching Summertime on the TV and just being transfixed and watching that and loving it. So when I saw this job come up, I thought, I love Katharine Hepburn. Like, she's great. Sounds like a good fit for me. Little did I really know Katharine Hepburn, though, and I've learned so much about her as I've taken on the job. And as Robin said, my respect for her has just grown immensely because she really paved the way for women without necessarily even intending to or knowing that she was doing it. But her example really rings true to today.
An unwitting hero.
Yeah.
Or heroine. She didn't know she was doing it, which made it all the more
She was just being herself.
Yeah, just being herself.
Yeah.
Just being Kate. Right?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. The mission of the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Center. What is the mission of it? What's it all about?
Well, our mission is certainly to present a very diverse array of performing arts programs. So we offer everything from, rock concerts to opera, film. We showcase classic movies. Part of our mission is to uphold her legacy. So not only through the exhibits in the museum, but tying that together with her body of work. So we often showcase classics each month. But it's also to educate the next generation of art makers and art lovers. So we have wonderful education programs, including summer camps for kids from age 5 to 13. We have counselor and training programs. So we have kids who are learning how to work with young students to be artists. And then eventually, come on staff at our camp as counselors. We provide a scholarship to a student each year who has shown a passion for the arts and made a difference in their community through the arts. So we are there to serve our community, to be a hub for the shoreline in the state of Connecticut. And it's working. We see over 50,000 people a year coming to our program.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
More than 50,000 a year.
And we're pretty small. It's
yes.
284 seat theater. So.
That's amazing. Yeah, but which we'll talk about that. But by the way, it's a beautiful theater.
Thank you.
And the acoustics are, even for my aging ears, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful down there. So I'm just curious about Katharine Hepburn and her allure, if you will. What is it? Some people have got it. Even after they exited from the scene.
Yeah.
You stand there and you look at that photograph of her and you go, yeah.
And she herself said that she didn't know what it was. She said it's some kind of spark, some kind of electricity. I don't know what it is, but she had it, and she still has it. And it's amazing to see. Part of our mission is to preserve her legacy and to tell an authentic story of her life, and to see that still really carries to today. That people are still drawn to her. We have the camps over the summer, and I take the little campers ages 5 through 10 through the museum, and they're intrigued by what they see in the museum. They're intrigued to hear about her life story and to know that it was revolutionary at one point to wear pants as a woman. And, her story is really timeless.
Imagine that. That is,
yeah.
to put on a pair of pants.
Yeah.
Imagine that. What do you think she'd think of her cultural center?
That's a good question.
We know from Cynthia McFadden, again, the executrix of her estate and a very close friend of Kate's, she thinks she would actually approve of everything that we're doing. She was quoted at one time as saying she never wanted to have anything named after her, but then she ended that quote with a little, at least until after I'm dead, right? So we unfortunately, she passed before the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center really came to be. But we're so lucky and so thrilled that her family and the estate did allow us to honor her by naming it the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, and then having this evolve into the museum. And we do think she'd really enjoy it. And we did make sure, again, via Cynthia's advice, to keep a bit of a reverence as part of the exhibit. So there are some quotes from Kate where she just pokes fun at herself. And that's something that, we want people to know too. She never really took herself too seriously.
Yeah, I saw those selfie-facing quotes, and I thought to myself, for a person in that position at that point in history, it was really revealing about who they were and the way that they saw themselves. And I don't think she got lost in the glitter. Would that be right if I said that? She didn't get lost in all of that.
What we found in so many of her letters is that she talked about wanting to be back home with the family. She adored her parents. She adored her siblings. It was a very large family. There were 6 children. She wanted to be back in Fenwick with them on the beach and playing golf and playing tennis. As much as she was doing what she wanted to do in Hollywood, she always wanted to be back with her family.
Now, funding for you guys is one question. How do you go about doing what you do? But what was she earning in comparison to a male star? You have any idea?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question.
Okay.
One of the things that we have in our collection is her contract from the 1957 film Desk Set. And the contract itself is kind of interesting because the one that we have was sent to her father, because her father managed her finances from when she first broke into the movie business until his death in the 1960s. But this contract is from a Spencer Tracy film. And the contract for her is $150,000 for the film.
Wow.
Spencer Tracy's contract from the film also went up for auction at one point, and so you could see into it, and he earned $250,000 for the film. And they both had, top billing above the title.
Kate know that?
I think she probably did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she minded terribly. I think she for her, she always said that the work was what she liked to do, and it was about the work. And though she did certainly negotiate her contracts and negotiate her salary and negotiate who her co-stars would be, who her directors would be. So she had a lot of power in negotiating her contracts. But she also said that she recognized sometimes that you just had to kind of nod your head and let men pretend that they know best, and then nod your head and say yes, and then go do what you want anyway.
Yeah, let's keep us in our little world. Right? There we go. Let me work around you. I'm going to get it done without you. Funding. You got to know today, people are competing for a shrinking market. I believe that's true. Funding must be a very difficult thing.
Well, we worked really hard over the last decade and a half or so to build a loyal patron base for the Kate. And even during the pandemic, when we couldn't share programming the way that we normally did, we had so much loyalty with our membership. They've stayed with us. It's a very strong program. It's a great way for people to support us as a nonprofit, but they get some wonderful benefits that enhance their experience at the Kate. So very strong membership program there. But we do seek out grants from every possible source. And we were fortunate to receive some ARPA funding, some recovery funding after the pandemic. Our museum is primarily supported through donations. We don't have a set admission fee, but we always request a donation of maybe $5 per person to help upkeep the collection. But we also do seek grants for the museum specifically. And we have wonderful museum programs, and those are often associated with a ticket fee. So we don't necessarily look at the Cultural Arts Center and the museum as separate things. Our fundraising in general supports both of the entities.
I think it's important that we tell people exactly where you're located so people could know that. Where?
We are in a beautiful historic building at 300 Main Street in Old Saybrook. And this is a town-owned building that we operate within as a nonprofit. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and its original intent was to be a theater and community gathering space.
And what are your hours of operation?
So the museum is open when the box office in the building is open, which is Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's also open an hour before shows. So anytime the show is happening, the museum is also open as well. Over the summer, we do extended museum hours for July and August on Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 4.
What types of memberships do you offer?
Well, our general Kate membership is really for that person who enjoys coming to performances at the Kate. So membership allows you to buy tickets before they go on sale to the public, so you get a little bit of the inside scoop on who's coming, and you're able to pick your seats before they sell out. But the range of membership benefits, depending on the level, goes from 10% discount on all tickets to drink discounts, access to our Marquee Club hospitality space. So that's about really the Cultural Arts Center. But our Katharine Hepburn Museum Kate Enthusiast Benefactor Program, that's really dedicated to the museum 100%. And people who are part of that group have complimentary access to the museum programs that we do. So if we have a lecture or a workshop, a guest speaker coming in, those folks who are Kate enthusiasts have complimentary tickets there, and they're the first to know about anything that might be added to our collection or that Elise might be working on for a future exhibit.
How do you acquire items?
So we have a variety of different sources. A lot of things that we've gotten come through donation. So we've been very fortunate to have donations from the family and from the estate. We also have donations from general people out in the public who say, my mother was a huge Katharine Hepburn fan, and she collected these things. She has this signed program from when Katharine Hepburn came to the Bushnell and did Coco. Would you guys like it? We also do acquire things through auction houses. So periodically, things will come up for auction, and we scramble to get the resources and bid for those items, and have really acquired a number of remarkable things that way as well.
Well, I have a ton more questions, so we're going to do another half hour of this. What do you think? Okay?
Thank you, Turtle.
All righty, listen.
Good.
That's all the time we have for this particular episode. We're going to do a whole hour, so another half hour will be coming up. I want to thank my guests, Robin and Elise, for being here, but they'll be right back so we can do part 2. This is What's Your Story? I'm your host, James Ransom Reed Jr. Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time, good night.
I want ours warm at Jaws Pawn, and we're stocked full of treasures. Big or small, we buy it all. We buy and sell fast rides, power tools, vintage guitars, and so much more. Walk the plank in style with our fine jewelry, diamonds, and watches. Plus, we have a huge selection of the latest video games, including the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Jaws Pawn, conveniently located on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington and West Main Street in New Britain.